Hello, Jacksonites. I know I said I would do this in a couple of days, but the opportunity arose and I took it by the balls. Yes, indeed. Today I will be...
God.
Zip it. Today I will be reviewing the vastly superior second entry of the Showa Gamera series. Gamera versus Barugon from 1966. And joining me today is none other than KPF himself. Say hello.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Now, you yourself are not the biggest Gamera fan. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've seen this and the original. And I tried to watch one of the Heisei ones, but I got too bored.
Oh, that may be some blasphemy in the kaiju community when you say that.
But I wasn't bored by this movie.
Ah, that's okay. I was bored by a couple of the Heisei Gamera films as well. So anyway, yes, indeed, we're doing Gamera versus Barugon, a film that many people in the kaiju community say is a couple of things. One, it's one of the best monster movies made in 1966. It's one of the best of the entire Gamera franchise. It is the best. It is the best of the entire Showa Gamera series, and it is overall a vast improvement over its predecessor. Do I agree with all four of these statements? Abso-fucking-lutely. Despite me liking the first Gamera movie, it did have quite a few problems, and this movie doesn't really have any. I have one con. I'm going to spoil it right now. I have one con with this movie. Everything else that I have good things to say about it. I think Gamera versus Barugon is a fine piece of monster cinema. Okay, that's better. You can see me a lot better. Now, what do you think of this movie, KPF?
Just like a quick, short, and sweet kind of thoughts on it.
Yeah.
It was, I'd say it's a memorable movie. It had the thing about this movie. It's either it's either really good and written some parts, or it's just I just can't stand it in some parts. However, there's a lot more. Even though I have more cons, the cons are smaller things.
They're nitpicky?
Most of them, yes. Most of them.
Fair enough. So as far as production history for Gamera versus Barugon, I don't really have much, other than apparently Gamera versus Barugon was actually the second most expensive Japanese movie made in 1966. Which kind of makes me wonder what the most expensive Japanese movie was in 1966. I have no clue what it was, but this goes to show. Oh, God, no. It was not Sea Monster. Maybe it was War of the Gargantuas. Doubt it.
Good movie.
Or the Daimajin series.
You like to review 1966 movies, I guess.
I guess so, yeah. I got to have you on for the Daimajin series then in that case as well.
All right.
So that's really all I know. I also do know that Gamera versus Barugon, despite having a bigger budget, despite being vastly superior than the first film. Enough with the fish joke, Sean. This has nothing to do with G98. Come on now. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah. Despite this movie being a big improvement over its predecessor, apparently this movie was not as successful as the first Gamera film financially. I'm sure that it gained favorable reviews back in '66. And while I do know that the Barugon did make its money back in its box office run, it wasn't quite as big a hit as the first Gamera film. And another Another bit of trivia that I know is that Noriaki Yuasa, well, not really trivia, I established this in the first film, or the first review. Noriaki Yuasa, who directed the first Gamera film, stepped down from director and started working with the special effects for this film, which I find to be kind of interesting. Why exactly he did that, I do not know. There's not really any information that states why, but whatever. So, what is your personal history with Gamma versus Barugon, KPF?
Well, I bought the actually I'm gonna get it. Bought the Legacy Collection. 11 movies for $10. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
What is that, like 90 cents a movie? It's pretty good.
Yeah.
However, I really never touched this because I do own the original on its own. So this is I think I got bored of Guardian of the Universe. That probably was the one I watched.
You too, huh?
But besides that, this is the first full movie that I've seen from the DVD, and it was today, and I was actually pleasantly surprised.
Well, my history with Gamma versus Barugon is a lot more complex. And no, Sean, if only this movie was not Godzilla's Revenge. Okay, you need another compilation video that you can make. How many times I bring up Sean mentioning if only this movie was Godzilla's Revenge? Anyway, so my history with Gamera versus Barugon. I always fondly remembered this movie from when I was young because I remember watching the American trailer for this movie quite a bit. Cretaceous the Hunted is here. He says, hi, KPF.
Hey.
I think he's been on my streams once or twice. The name does look familiar. But anyway, so I remember watching the American trailer for Gamera versus Barugon quite a bit on a Gamera compilation video on YouTube. It's long since been taken down. Well, hi to you, Sean. Jesus. And Gamera versus Barugon just always really intrigued me. And like I said previously, when the Showa Gamera movies were uploaded to YouTube, Gamma versus Barugon was one that I absolutely made sure to watch in its entirety. And the first time I watched it, I can't deny I was really impressed. At that point was when my... What the fuck are you eating?
Sugar cookies.
Sorry, I just see him chowing away on food off screen. It's really distracting. Anyway, so... yeah, Gamma versus Barugon really, really impressed me the first time I saw it. And upon subsequent rewatchings, the movie stayed strong with me, and I always did consider it to be the best of the Gamera series. However, I didn't oh god, the fucking Arnold cookie joke. Put that cookie down now. Anyway, oh, he's completely oblivious. He doesn't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Catch up on your Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, damn it. Or are you one of those assholes who prefers Sylvester Stallone?
I don't care about either of them. Really. Just continue on to review.
Anyway, so I didn't truly appreciate Gamma versus Barugon until I saw Zazubar's Gamera Palooza episode on Gamma versus Barugon. That review blew me the fuck away. I was so impressed with Bill's analysis of Gamma versus Barugon, and it made me realize that Gamma versus Barugon is a much better movie than I initially thought it was. And of course, after I saw it, I rewatched the movie 3 times in a row. Loved it all 3 times. But then I let it sit for a little bit, and then I decided to rewatch it again, of course, when I got these on Blu-ray. But may I say, Gamma vs. Barugon looks fabulous on Blu-ray. And it still stays true, and it still holds up well. It is one of my favorite Gamera movies, and is still one of my favorite kaiju movies. I absolutely love Gamera versus Barugon, and it's such a damn shame that the franchise teeters off so bad, so deep, and so quickly after this. Shame. Anyway, so with that being said, yes, Sean, Arnold is the best. So that being said, let's get to the plot. Now, while the plot to this movie is very complex and there's a lot of stuff that happens in it, the plot itself is also kind of simple when you really break it down to brass tacks. So the plot is set 6 months after the events of the previous movie, of course, with the opening of this movie having a compilation of stock footage from the first Gamera movie, but I'm not going to knock this movie for doing that. It was a common thing to do. The Z-Plan rocket transporting Gamera to Mars conveniently collides with a meteorite in space.
And it's Space Godzilla. That would be funny.
How convenient that there just so happened to be a meteorite floating around space that just so happens to smack into Gamera's rocket. But whatever. So Gamera is freed from his rocket, and fairly early on in the franchise, it is established that Gamera can survive in space. Some fucking how. And now free, Gamera returns to Earth, and he destroys Kurobe Dam in Japan. Which is... Get off your damn phone.
No, I'm taking a picture. I gotta spread the news.
Oh. So Gamera goes on a rampage and destroys Kurobe Dam in Japan, which is one of the best destruction scenes of the entire Gamera franchise, even though it is a little too short. It still looks really, really good.
The dam sequence, that's pretty good.
So after Kurobe Dam is destroyed, Gamera continues his rampage throughout Japan, looking for sources of heat and flames to feed on, kind of continuing his mainly just continuing his stuff that he was doing in the first film. So at the same time, a group of 3, I guess they're called mercenaries, are sent by a man named Kano, no, not the Mortal Kombat character, who is a World War II veteran, to an island in the South Pacific to retrieve a huge opal, which is like a massive jewel. I think it's about the size of like a grapefruit or something. That this man found in a cave during World War II, and he hid it there so that he could collect it later once he got back on his feet financially. Of course, now at this point, he's an underground crime boss, so he sends his brother along with 2 of his friends to, I think the island's Papua New Guinea, to retrieve this opal in a cave. And once they get there, despite warnings from the local villagers, of course, the trio find and locate the cave, and they soon locate the opal as well. However, before they went, the trio were warned by Kano that inside the cave lives a species of scorpion that apparently if you're stung by them, it's fatal and death is in minutes. And the man who actually finds the opal is stung, and he dies within minutes. However, the oldest man of this, who Brendan Tenold refers to as Japanese John Tron, his name being Onodera, he saw that there was a scorpion on this guy's leg, but he decided to not warn him, hey, there's a scorpion on your leg, and just let him get stung. And the second man, Kesuke, Kano's younger brother, he is also betrayed by Onodera, and he tosses a bunch of grenades, causes a cave-in, and he is apparently killed in the collapsing rubble. However, Keisuke is not dead, and he's rescued by the natives, and he's nursed back to health. En route back to Japan, Onodera comes down with malaria and athlete's foot. If he had malaria, he would be in much worse shape than he was in the movie, but whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So the medical officer on the ship that he's taking turns on an infrared light onto Onodera's foot so it can cure his athlete's foot, which I'm pretty sure that's not how you cure athlete's foot.
It was the 60s.
Yeah, apparently. Actually, I've heard a way that you can cure athlete's foot is by pissing on your feet in the shower.
Anyway.
Apparently that works.
Who knew?
Anyway, so Onodera leaves, and he accidentally leaves the opal exposed to the infrared lamp. And while he's off, I think he's playing mahjong, the heat incubates the opal, which is actually an egg. And a lizard-like creature eventually hatches from the egg, and it escapes the ship, and it grows to an enormous size very quickly. And the lizard destroys the ship, and as well as the surrounding Kobe harbor. Keisuke, who of course having survived the cave-in, he awakens in care of the villagers, and he returns to Japan with a village girl named Karen. Oh, this character. Who refers to the lizard as Barugon once she sees it on the news. Barugon goes on a rampage throughout Osaka, emitting its freeze gas tongue attack. Did I just say that? And gives Tokyo Tower a massive tongue lashing. And just goes on a fairly entertaining rampage throughout Japan, and Osaka, and he freezes the surrounding area completely. So once the military tries to initiate a retaliative missile strike attack, Barugon unleashes its ultimate attack, being a rainbow beam that is fired from the glowing spikes on his back. What? So the rainbow ray destroys the missile site, and this, of course, being a massive source of heat, attracts the other giant monster in this movie. Who is that again? Oh yeah, Gamera. And the two get into Gamera's first fight of the franchise, and admittedly it's not that good, though Gamera gains the upper hand at first. However, Barugon unleashes his freeze tongue spray and gives Gamera a tongue lashing, and ends up freezing Gamera solid. And yes, I'm going to keep saying tongue lashing because I think that is extremely amusing to say. So Gamera is frozen solid, though not without giving Barugon a wound on his face by sucker punching him in the face and causing him to bleed purple spooge. So in the meantime, while debating with Kano on how to recover the opal, which he still believes to be aboard this sunken ship, Onodera ends up inadvertently blurting out that he killed his two companions, to which he then begins to murder both Kano and Kano's wife to cover up his crime. God damn, this guy really is Japanese Bob Hoskins. So, and after finding Onodera, Keisuke and Karen subdue him, and they leave him tied up in his home. Keisuke and Karen travel to the Japanese Defense Ministry, and they suggest a plan using a giant, and they say this in the English dub, 6,000 carat diamond to lure Barugon into a lake to drown. Which I'm pretty sure if it was 6,000 carats, it would be this big around. But it's not. It's only about the size of a baseball. But whatever. The plan actually ends up failing because the diamond's radiation proves to be not enough, because the infrared radiation that was given off has mutated Barugon into something that he's not supposed to be. What? Whatever. So, and after another attempt by irradiating the diamond even further by putting it through a special kaleidoscope lens thingy, the additional infrared radiation almost succeeds until Onodera shows up, being freed by his sex geisha, and informed of the diamond by this sex geisha, shows up, manages to... Okay, this is a really, really illogical scene. Oh god, there's somebody named King Ghidorah here.
Yep. He's probably from my channel.
Okay.
So is the legendary Goji.
Hello, legendary Goji. I love your thumbnail. Anyway, so this scene really does not make fucking sense. How is Onodera? How is Onodera able to infiltrate a military plan, riding up on a jet boat, having only a pistol, him being only an amateur smuggler, and he manages to dismantle a military operation with 9 military officials, 2 armed with rifles, and the others armed with sidearms, steals the diamond and gets away. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. But Onodera gets consumed by his own greed, literally, when Barugon decides to give him the ultimate tongue lashing, extends his tongue out, wraps it around Onodera, and eats him along with the giant diamond. What? Anyway, so moving on. Once Onodera is dead, the humans feel kind of stuck. Like, oh shit, what the fuck are we going to do now to kill Barugon? So Keisuke soon discovers that from a set of military jeeps that were destroyed by Barugon's rainbow ray, that all the mirrors on the vehicles were not affected whatsoever by the rainbow ray. So the military devises a plan to create a giant satellite dish looking mirror in order to use it to reflect rainbow, or to reflect the rainbow beam back to Gamera, or not Gamera,
or as they call it, Operation Rearview Mirror.
Which is a really fucking stupid name. I forgot about that.
I remember the scientist doctor guy was like, "That's it. That's the end of Operation Rearview Mirror." I was like, "How did you just say that?"
Well, maybe it had to do with the bad subtitles for the Gamera Legacy Collection. Which, if you ever go further down in the Gamera series using that collection, be prepared for some really shitty subtitles, especially when you get to Iris. But anyway, so at first the plan seems to be a success. Barugon fires a rainbow beam, and it reflects back on Barugon, which creates catastrophic damage around the side of his body. But Barugon learns from his mistake and only fires one rainbow, refusing to fire another. So the military is pretty much out of options at this point. So another giant monster just so happens to thaw out. What was that? Oh yeah, Gamera. And Gamera thaws out and heads towards, I think it's Lake Biwa, and attacks Barugon once again, having a much better monster fight. And after this fight, Gamera, okay, it is Lake Biwa. Gamera drowns Barugon in the depths of Lake Biwa, then flies away, killing his first adversary. And remorseful over the disaster his greed has caused, even though it really wasn't Keisuke's fault, it was Onodera's, with his brother now dead, and now having found love with Karen, right out of butt the fuck nowhere, Keisuke decides to turn over a new leaf and make a fresh start on the island where it all began, thus ending the movie and leading into the next one. So how about this plot?
I'm all alone now. Karen's like, I love you.
And like I said, it comes out of butt the fuck nowhere.
All right, so can I do my pros and cons
Real quick.
first.
So what do you think of this plot, KPF?
I actually really liked it. It was pretty entertaining. It didn't really have many points where I was bored really at all, and it was kind of surprising how I thought it was pretty creative, pretty interesting. Yeah.
I think this movie's plot is very, very, very solid, and I do think that it's very well written, it's very well thought out, it's very well conceived, it's paced very well. It certainly does also feel very original. I can't really think of many kaiju movies where the main focus of the movie is actually an espionage plot, which I've said before that or like a heist plot more like. And while I have said before, I'm not the biggest fan of spy movies, I'm also not the biggest fan of espionage or heist movies like Ocean's 11 or the Ocean's 11 series. Not a big fan, especially Ocean's 8. That movie was fucking horrendous. But with this, it's well done, and the movie overall. Daddy's home cake every night. What?
It's from Godzilla 2014. Aaron Taylor Johnson's like, Daddy's home, cake every night.
Child. Anyway, so yeah, I think this movie's plot is very well done, very entertaining to watch. So, you may get into your pros.
My pros. I do like Barugon's design. It kind of reminded me of sort of like a mix between Anguirus and Gorosaurus a little bit, but it was really inspired by, I can't remember what the hell it was called, movie, God, what is it? The Land Unknown. The T-Rex looking things in that movie. For some reason, like the face kind of looks. All right, give me a minute. You'll see.
Oh, is that the first? Isn't that the first movie ever made to have the Kong 76 roar for the T-Rex?
Yes.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. Okay, I can kind of see some similarities between the T-Rex's head and Barugon's head. Yeah, I've seen that before.
Kind of.
I think he looks more like. I think he looks more like Gorosaurus, if you ask me. But whatever.
Yeah, I saw that first too. But yeah, so I do kind of like Barugon's design, and I do like his backstory, kind of him coming from the Opal. I thought that was kind of cool. It's interesting because I either hate a lot of things about Barugon or I love them. Oh God, some of the things are just dumb, but in general,
what's dumb?
I'll get to that in my cons, but in general, I do like his backstory, and for the most part, his design is pretty solid. And I would say this movie has really good human stuff. Pretty much liked all the characters. Really had no problem with any of that. Thought it was pretty good. Some of the suit effects I actually kind of liked. Though Gamera felt really stiff, I did like how Barugon's like little spikes on his back like lit up before the rainbow came out. I thought that was kind of cool. That you can't see the strings everywhere. And I do like the how the hell you say Onodera's character.
Onodera,
that was kind of cool. It was an interesting character to watch because he was just crazy. Like, and at the end when he was trying to get the diamond, it was like his last resort. His life was ruined at that point. He killed like 3 people. Fucking, basically caused everything. And an interesting thing, I believe it was him that fell in the quicksand in the beginning when they went to the island. So if they would have left him there, then none of this would have happened.
I think you might be right, but also I think it was the third guy as well. Kawajiri, yeah.
One of them.
Yeah, it was one of those two.
All right. Should I get to my cons or your pros first?
Oh, how many pros do you have?
6.
I got 4. No, I counted 4. Do you have it? List them off one by one.
Barugon's design and Barugon's backstory I put separate. I missed one. Sorry. That's far away. I actually kind of liked Gamera's role in the film. He wasn't like he came. It was weird, but it worked really well. He was not only like good guy, but he still retained his old like just came, destroyed the dam. Basically, people were still afraid of him. You know.
So it's the best anti-heroic
Yes, it's a really
presentation
good balance
of Gamera that you've seen.
Yes, he technically saved the day, but he also kind of like Godzilla in 2014. He probably killed a lot of people in the process anyway.
Okay, fair enough. So let's get to my pros next. Because this is gonna be exciting. So, Gamera versus Barugon pros. Excuse me. God, why the fuck can I not talk today? I must have had a really shitty day at work today. So, pro number one for Gamera versus Barugon. I think the human cast. I mean, complete 180 turn from the previous movie. The entire human cast is overall very, very, very solid. Keisuke is a very likable guy. He's the best character in the film, if you ask me. He's likable. He's proactive in the story. He's trying to right a wrong that really is not his wrong, but he sees it as his wrong, even though he's wrong for thinking it's his wrong. There's just so much wrong with this wrong situation. But overall, I like Keisuke. He's well acted. His dialogue is fairly decent, except for a couple preachy moments toward the end where he goes, "Why are humans so greedy? Why are humans so shitty?" But they're not around too long, so if you just ignore them, just pretend they're not there. Karen, even though I say, "Oh, this character," she actually is a fairly decent female lead. Though there are a few moments where she does come off as being really bitchy. I mean, really, really bitchy. I mean, borderline Miki Sagusa levels of Space Godzilla bitchy. Almost. But overall, she is a fairly likable character. Kawajiri, even though he's not on screen very much, he's a likable guy. And Onodera, oh my god, even though he is a totally despicable man, he is a very fun, despicable man to watch.
Yes.
Great human villain. I actually think if this guy was in a room with Torahata and Kumayama from Mothra vs. Godzilla, I think that would be man's doom. But then again, those three would probably kill each other in the process. But so whatever. But still, that would be an interesting trio of human kaiju villains. But Onodera is definitely the best human villain in the entire Gamera series. Not really saying much because there's not that many of them, but still, it's something to take note of nonetheless. Pro number two, unlike the previous film, the music score for this movie is also very, very solid. Was not Akira Ifukube, of course. The only Daiei movies, at least to my knowledge, that Akira Ifukube did was the Daimajin trilogy. But the music score was done by Chuji Kinoshita. And he did a good job. I have to say, he did a very good job with the music score for this film. There's a lot of moments that feel kind of mystical. What the hell are you doing? Oh, he's getting more food to distract me with. Anyway, so Chuji Kinoshita, pretty good music score for this movie. It feels mystical at points. It feels dark, but also light at some points. Overall, it's probably the best music score for the entire Gamera series. And again, that's not really, or not the entire Gamera series, the entire Showa Gamera series. Again, not saying much because the Showa Gamera series, it's not really noteworthy for its music, but still here, the music score is very, very, very solid. Pro number three is that I think this movie is overall very well paced. It has like the first 20 minutes or so are relatively quickly paced. I mean, it's Gamera's return. Watching him go on his rampage throughout the Kurobe Dam, it's really fun. Then the second act really slows down, but it's the good kind of slow because heist movies and espionage movies have to have a bit of a slower pace so it can build tension and suspense and kind of draw you into the movie's story. So here the slow pacing works for the second act, and the movie picks up once again to be cinematically paced once Barugon is born. Why do I keep confusing these two? They look completely different. But so once Barugon is born, the movie becomes very cinematically paced in my eyes. It's never too slow. It's never too fast. It is perfectly paced, in my opinion. That is. So overall, the only scene that I think does drag a little bit is when they start running out of ideas on how to kill Barugon. Thankfully, it doesn't last long, but like around an hour and 20 minutes in was when the movie started to drag just a little bit, but only lasted about 5 minutes. So that's not a huge problem, but still, I think the movie is well paced. Pro number 4 is Barugon himself. I love Barugon. I think Barugon is easily my second least favorite, or not second least favorite, my second favorite. I can't fucking talk today. Why? Shut up. No, Virus is my least favorite Gamera monster, hands down. But Barugon is my second favorite Gamera monster, by none, or bar none. I love his design, even though the four-legged lizard type kaiju, it was a cliche at this point, even for 1966. You're right, he does kind of look like Anguirus, but yeah, that too. But Gorosaurus is highly underrated, so that's a good thing in my eyes. But so yeah, he does look a bit similar to Anguirus. He looks nothing like Barugon from Frankenstein versus Barugon, so don't even think about commenting that. The two look nothing alike. Bo Carrier, you ask, why didn't Godzilla and Gamera never get a movie together before? I will explain that when I review Gamera the Brave. So look forward to that. But anyway, I love Barugon. I love his power set. Again, the tongue lashing freezing spray. It's ridiculous, and KPF looks bored. It's ridiculous, but it's unique. Certainly, I've never seen a monster shoot the gay pride symbol on its back. Which, I have nothing against gay pride. Hell, my boss is gay, and she's one of my best friends.
All I can think about is you saying, in that video, you're like, everyone in the dub for King Ghidorah sounds like they're gay.
They do. Anyway, so I've never seen a monster shoot a rainbow beam on its back, nor have I seen one do it since. Sadly, because Barugon was supposed to appear in later Gamera sequels, but they decided to replace him with Gauss. Shamefully. But yeah, I love Barugon. His mythology is a little shaky because he's supposed to be a mythological animal, but he's also mutated in some way. It's just like, pick one or the other, please, but whatever. I don't really let that bug me nearly as much. But yeah, I love Barugon. He's such an underrated monster. I really wish that... Why'd you turn the camera off? Okay, never mind. I really wish that he got the appearances he was supposed to get in later Gamera movies. But still, his presence here is very well felt, and he's just awesome. He's very enjoyable to watch. Pro number 5 is Gamera himself. Once again, I love Gamera in this movie. He is a complete freaking badass in this movie, in my opinion. I love his design. This is easily my favorite Showa Gamera design. It is a bit different from the previous film's Gamera design. Gamera's
completely different suit, or like just modified.
I think it was modified. I don't think it was a completely new suit, but they changed it up. They fixed Gamera's arms, thankfully. They don't look like they're segmented or too bulky or stiff in any way. And they did change Gamera's head. He has a bit of a shorter snout, and he has more narrow tusks and more noticeable teeth. But I love Gamera's design in this movie. I think it's easily the best of the Showa series. I also love the dark yellow eyes that he has. It makes him look a lot more menacing. Overall, Gamera in this movie is a complete and total juggernaut. Shut up. I can't talk today. Why? But yeah, I love Gamera in this movie. Except for one thing, which I will get to momentarily. Pro number 6 is the monster action in this movie is overall pretty fun. The only scene of monster action that I don't particularly care for is Gamera and Barugon's first fight. I will give it a bit of a pass because this was the special effects team's first time doing a monster fight, but still, the first monster fight is not very good. Though it does have one moment that I really do like. It's when Gamera and Barugon are still kind of sizing each other up, and when Barugon lunges towards Gamera and he just kind of shoves him aside, then Barugon starts smacking him with his tail, but once Gamera has enough with it, he rises up on his hind legs and he roars like, "Get the fuck off of me, bitch!" That was a cool scene, and that sends shivers up my spine every time I watch it. But aside from that, the rest of the monster action is still pretty fun. Barugon's rampage throughout Osaka is really entertaining to watch, despite the really, really, really shitty planes that Dai uses. Get to that in just a minute. But when he's fighting the Japanese military, it's really fun to watch. Barugon's second rampage, when he's going throughout the Japanese countryside, it's all entertaining. And Barugon's second fight with Gamera is also very entertaining. It's a much better monster fight than the first film, thankfully. And it's a good finale for the film. So overall, and the Kurobe Dam scene was awesome. One of the best Gamera destruction scenes throughout the entire franchise, even though there's very, very few that don't become stock footage, as we'll discuss later in the franchise. Anyway, so yeah, the monster action is very fun. And the last pro that I have, pro number 7, is that the special effects for this movie are top notch. Except for the planes. Oh my god, Dai cannot do planes. And it's sad because they look worse and worse and worse as the series goes on. But god, Dai can just not do planes. But aside from the planes, the pyrotechnics look great. The Gamera suit itself looks good. The Barugon suit is well constructed. The miniature sets are well made, and when Osaka is frozen, that looks really good. The Lake Biwa set looks really good. Overall, the special effects are very, very, very solid, and in many ways are superior to the first film. And also, when Gamera is surrounded by fire, he looks amazing. And also, the fire puppet effects for Gamera, they also look really good too. Still, overall, the special effects are really, really solid. So what are your cons?
All right. So the first one is this is also something I don't generally like about Gamera. But one thing more about Barugon, the monster roars are too annoying. They're like the most high pitched squeals ever, and they're too much. It's like it's like I always hate those kind of roars. Like I hate Mechagodzill's Showa roar. It's stupid. So yeah, so didn't like that at all. Some of the effects were kind of weird. Like when they were in the cave, the bats that were flying back.
Oh yeah, the bats on strings look pretty shitty. I'll give you that.
And you can see Barugon's string on his head in almost every single scene. I think that's relatively close, and it's very noticeable in some parts.
I'll give you that. Yeah, that's true.
And I think the tongue effect, it just looks wrong. Like no one's tongue is that hard.
Well, this is a mutated monster that will never exist, so give it a break.
Look right. It doesn't look like a tongue. And also his tongue power, where it shoots basically Mr. Freeze and the rainbow out of his back. Good God, they're so stupid. Like,
You're not sending me
out
to the
of
cooler.
nowhere, they're out of nowhere powers that
So
make no
what?
sense. The only time the tongue was cool is when it knocked over a building. But once it started shooting shit, I was like, what's happening? And the rainbow totally took me off guard. I had no clue that he had a rainbow in this movie, and it goes, and I was like, what the fuck am I watching? Gamera in this film a couple of times acts like a dumbass. So he, first of all, lets himself get hit in the face with Barugon's tail at least 10 times, and then he doesn't do anything to prevent himself from getting frozen. Like, it kind of looked like he just sat there for whatever reason. Like, I know that his fire was kind of disabled because Barugon had shot at it, but still, he could have moved out of the way. Another thing I hated was the plans to kill Barugon were stupid. They were like, well, we have to put a diamond to lure him to the water because it's his weakness. And then I was thinking, why don't you just dump water on him? And then I was thinking later, okay, maybe they just didn't do that. But then when they proposed the idea of just making rain, I was like, why don't you just dump water on him? You already have the helicopter. Just get a big bucket. You don't need to make clouds and then have it rain on him. It made no sense to me. And in the end fight, there was some really poor editing. I think some weird cuts for some reason just didn't look great. And yeah, Barugon, like, for some reason, sometimes he was fine in water, and then in the end he wasn't, even though he had already gone well into the water to kill.
Yeah, that is another thing about Barugon that just seems a little ill-conceived, is that his weakness to water doesn't really make sense. But also Gamera's weakness to the cold also doesn't make sense, because if he's able to survive for millions of years frozen in the ice and still comes out alive, how does him having a weakness to ice make any sense? Whatever, though.
Yes. But yeah, the scene where he goes, like, literally well into the water to go kill Onodera and to take the jewel, that doesn't hurt him. But later, when Gamera puts him in the water, it does. Most of those are nitpicks, but they are annoying. And one more I have to say, this film should not have been called the Gamera movie, in my opinion. It should have been called How the Fuck Do We Kill Barugon? Basically. That should have been this movie. Or Operation Rearview Mirror would have worked too. That was a funny one. You have to agree, this is basically...
I know what you're going to say. So let me get to my one con with Gamera versus Barugon. This is a big problem that this movie has. The lack of Gamera. Say what you want about the first Gamera movie, but at least the movie was about him. This movie is an hour and 40 minutes long. And I'd be willing to say that Gamera has maybe 10 minutes of screen time in the entire film.
Maybe less.
That's being a little generous, but I'm just going to say 10 minutes for now, just for the hell of it. Gamera is really lacking in this movie, and he feels very superfluous to his own movie. I will agree with Zazubar on this, that I do think, I too have a suspicion that this movie was not supposed to be a Gamera movie at some point. That this was supposed to be its own original monster movie, but some studio executive at Dai said, hey, let's bring in Gamera and make this a second Gamera movie somehow.
It's like King Kong versus Ebra.
Yeah, a little bit. I actually think this case is worse than that movie, but whatever.
Yes.
But yes, Gamera, despite him being a total badass, and despite him having my favorite design of the entire series, Gamera's placement in the story is very weak and is very superfluous. He feels like he is literally just shoehorned into his own movie. Kind of like another monster movie that I have also reviewed and I also really don't like. Godzilla vs. Mothra 92. Though I actually think this is worse than that movie. Gamera being shoehorned into his own movie, I think, is worse than than Mothra 92. I hate to say that because I like this movie leaps and bounds more than Mothra 92, but still. And yes,
this movie is lucky that Barugon is an interesting monster.
yes.
Or else it would have fell flat.
I also do think that Gamera himself is a tad generic in this movie, and he does really suffer from big gun syndrome. He literally is just, he shows up in the beginning, he shows up 45 minutes later to fight Barugon for the first time, then he shows up a half hour later to fight the other monster just to kill him when the humans run out of ideas to kill Barugon. And people say that Godzilla suffers from big gun syndrome in Godzilla versus Hedorah. At least Godzilla had a fair amount of screen time in Godzilla versus Hedorah. Like I said, I'm willing to bet that Gamera has maybe 10 minutes of screen time in this movie, and it's pretty fucking sad.
It's kind of like Godzilla 2014, how more of the focus
That
is on
too.
the Mutos. But I think in this case, it's probably worse.
Well, you're just saying that because you have a bias for G2014.
Yes.
So yeah, the lack of Gamera is a big problem, especially when the movie, the full Japanese title is called Duel of the Monsters, Gamera versus Barugon. Gamera is the top billed monster, and he's barely in his own movie. So yes, that is a big problem that this movie has. But overall, still, I love the crap out of this movie. It's one of my favorite monster movies. It's definitely one of my favorite Gamera movies. And I can pop this on and watch it and enjoy it anytime, any day. So what are your final thoughts on this film, KPF?
Pleasantly, and though the cons were minor, it didn't really affect the movie too much.
What would you rate this?
I'd give it like a 7 out of 10.
Fair enough.
For comparison, I'd probably give a film like Destroy All Monsters. I give like a 7 out of 10.
Okay, fair enough. I, however, am going to give this movie a 9 out of 10. Despite the lack of Gamera being a big problem in this movie, I still highly enjoyed this film. It's easily the best of the Showa Gamera series. And like I said at the beginning, it's such a shame that the series just goes way downhill after this point. Every now and again, we'll get a Gamera movie that is a little fun. But from here on out, the rest of the series is going to be a really rough sit.
And you can find KPF back to review Super Monster.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, you're going to have fun with that one.
Oh, yeah.
You may actually, that movie is so bad, it may actually, I'm going to warn you right now. That movie is so bad, it may make you want to end your friendship with me.
It's not even so bad, it's good.
No. It's insultingly bad.
Is that the movie where he does like the friggin' like parkour shit where he's like hanging off the bar and he like spins?
No, not even close. That's Gamera versus Guiron. But anyway, sorry, Sean. What was your question? I didn't see that.
He said Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Monsterverse.
Oh, no.
Would you want that?
Nah. Just keep him in the Terminator series. Unless you want to bring in Jet Jaguar and have Arnold voice him. I'm a cybernetic organism, living tissue over metal endoskeleton. So anyway, thank you all for sticking around and watching this review. Thank you to KPF for joining me for this film. This will be the last review for a couple of days, unfortunately, but because I have a really shitty shift to work tomorrow. But look forward to the next review as I tackle a Gamera movie that I'm really not the biggest fan of, even though it has its own cult status. And it's also the one that introduces Gamera's King Ghidorah. And me not liking King Ghidorah, what do you think I like? What do you think I think about the next movie's monster? With that being Gamera versus Gauss. Ugh. So post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video with your friends. KPF, you got anything to pimp out?
Nothing else to add except thank you for everyone who came here today for my channel. A few of you. It's good to have you here.
And also,
Trumpets in the comments.
Oh God. Oh, and also, if you want to laugh at my expense, check out KPF's recent compilation, "Best Moments of Me," and it's pain.
I left it with an open ending. There could, if you read the description, I said, "Is it part 1?" We'll find out.
Well, Sean says, "Can't wait for part 2." We both know there's going to be a part 2 now. Come on now.
No confirmation on how long it's going to take if it is, but it will be better.
Alrighty, so see you in the next one, and as always, go out and hook up with a native diamond chick and help her destroy a monster that gives really bad tongue lashings. And I will see you guys in the next video.
Shut up, Sean.
Exactly.